Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the official Establish.The.Run.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm one of the co-founders here at ETR. As always, I am joined by fellow co-founder, the man himself, the man with the nut FFPC main event team. It is, of course, Evan Silva. Evan, what's up, buddy?
What's up, man? Finally, the Eli era is over. We've got a chance to have some good football back in the Meadowlands, or at least from one team that plays the Meadowlands.
Yeah,
because that Jets-Browns game was a disaster by the Jets, defensively and offensively. Love to see that 89-yard touchdown right in Greg Williams' fake glasses-wearing eye, though. That's fantastic.
It is good. Greg Williams is such a dork. It's crazy. Okay. We need to get into it here, Evan. Week 2 brought a ton of injury news, a ton of it. We also learned a ton more about these teams, about these players. We also had Eli Manning benched, as you mentioned. So we thought it would be good to go team by team once again, just like last week. This episode 17, will be the NFC and is free, just a small sliver of all the content / information that we're putting out on a week-to-week basis behind the paywall at Establish.The.Run. Episode 18 will cover the AFC, and we'll also take some subscriber questions. So for anyone out there listening who hasn't signed up yet, we do have a monthly option out there. We do have a matchups, rankings, waiver wire only option out there. Get in there. Okay. Evan, let's get into it with the NFC. We're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals. And yeah, Arizona has had some difficult spots to start the season. I think Detroit's defense, is reasonably solid. Obviously, playing at Baltimore is difficult. Christian Kirk had a nice game, would top the buy low model, had a really nice game, 20 points at 2% ownership. What stands out to me, though, Evan, is Kyler Murray's running usage. And it's as if he's not even like taking the rushing lanes that are there. I mean, if you told me Kyler Murray had 17 rush yards through the first 2 games, I would say you're absolutely insane. Is that a fluke? Will Kyler Murray's rushing numbers increase as we move on here?
I definitely think that he is not comfortable yet running the football in the NFL, which, I mean, I don't blame him. He's like the smallest dude on the field every time he lines up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll come. I think that it'll become more comfortable after he breaks a couple. But, yeah, right now I don't think that we can make any assumptions in terms of his statistical projection regarding his rushing usage week to week.
Anything else on Arizona? We got a scare with David Johnson's wrist.
Yeah.
Looks like he's going to be okay.
Yeah, I got a scare with David Johnson's wrist. Christian Kirk hit. He was the number 1 wide receiver in Josh Hermsmeyer's air yards by low model, exclusive to Establish.The.Run.com this year. Big hit, went from 4 for 32 in week 1 to 6 for 114 to lead the Cardinals in week 2. So we will take that W. I'm sorry. And the haters will take the L. The haters will take the L.
There's definitely a lot of haters out there. Okay. The Atlanta Falcons, the big thing about me is I was so tilted that this game was not on the main slate. Just a perfect setup for Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, to me, a guy that I was trying to be high on in the preseason. It's going as expected. I think 16 targets in 2 games. What's not going as expected, Evan, is this Devonta Freeman disaster. And yeah, it's been tough. You know, the Eagles have a very good rush defense. The week 1 game up in Minnesota got away from them quickly. Another really tough spot. But Ito Smith is playing more than I expected. And the run game is struggling, I think, as a whole, more than I expected. Everybody wants to know what they should be doing with Devonta Freeman.
Yeah, and the Falcons lost their starting first-round guard, Chris Lindstrom, to a foot fracture. They've had to play some musical chairs on the offensive line. Their first-round right tackle, Caleb McGarry, was in and out of the game on Sunday night. So they're often – and he was out for most of almost the entire preseason due to heart surgery. Mm-hmm. So they have not had continuity on the offensive line. They've gone up against 2 of the best defensive fronts, as you mentioned, the Eagles and the Vikings. Now they're facing a Colts team that has really struggled in run defense so far and gives up a ton of production in the passing game to RBs. Devonta Freeman has really only made 1 good play so far this year, and it came on a 29-yard shovel pass on Sunday night against the Eagles where he got tackled inside the 5. The narrative might be a little bit different if he had scored that touchdown. He did have 14 touches to Ito Smith's 6. He's playing 60% of the snaps. Ito's at 40. So he is the lead. He's not a workhorse back. He's not a bell cow back. He's not a feature back. He's the lead back in a running back by committee, and we need to adjust down expectations. But I do think that he's a good start this week in season long. In daily fantasy, probably just not enough usage.
Let's go to Carolina, because it's clear to anybody with two eyes that Cam Newton was playing injured. And man, I love Cam. I thought Cam would have a big year this year, getting back from the shoulder. Now it seems he's having a foot injury. He looks withered. And I've seen, speculation out there. Well, they use Cam like a running back, right? Like Cam played like a running back. Maybe his career will be short like a running back was. And I hate to see that, because Cam is just such an awesome player and an awesome fantasy player. But now he's questionable. I mean, we're recording this Tuesday afternoon. The word out of Carolina today was, man, it looks shaky for Cam to play in week 3. If Cam plays, can we start him? And if not, do you have any thoughts for the people on Kyle Allen? Because we actually didn't see a lot of Kyle Allen in the preseason this year, because they used Will Greer a little bit more. But yeah, what's going on with Cam and the Carolina quarterbacks?
I mean, based on the news that we have, and we're recording this just in the early afternoon on Tuesday, trying to get it out there for people doing waiver runs. I mean, Cam is real close to droppable right now in season long. I was actually going to maybe look at him as a contrarian daily fantasy tournament play this week, but he re-injured his foot, and he wasn't at practice on Tuesday, coming off the long week. And, I mean, based on the information that we have right now, like, I'm not expecting him to play in week 3. Maybe that'll change by the time this comes out or later in the week. But, yeah, I'm worried about his health now.
What about Kyle Allen? Do you have anything for the people on Kyle Allen?
Yeah, I mean, he played really well in a Week 17 spot start last year. I remember he was a huge high school recruit that kind of bounced around a little bit in college. And, yeah, we didn't see much of him this preseason because they played Will Greer so much. But, I mean, I think that Kyle Allen might be a little bit better than we think, but it's still real dicey for DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Greg Olsen, Christian McCaffrey. You certainly would much rather have a healthy Cam out there, or even an 85% Cam, than Kyle Allen, I think.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about a bunch of these backup quarterback situations as we go along through these team by teams, because there's a lot of teams playing with new and backup quarterbacks. I do think I would agree with Evan that Kyle Allen is one of the better ones that's stepping in to a job. Doesn't mean that he'll be nearly as good as Cam. The Chicago Bears, Evan, I thought it was notable that David Montgomery's usage started to increase off of week 1. He got 67% of the running back carries. He also got 3 targets. It seems like maybe David Montgomery is separating nice and early from Mike Davis. That's encouraging. Obviously, going to Denver was not a great spot, but they will have better spots going forward. What's your outlook on the Bears' backfield?
Yeah, big step forward for David Montgomery. Tariq Cohen, we had him in the shy away 40 this year. He just really has not gotten it going, and I don't think he will. I mean, it was such a big hit to him that David Montgomery and Mike Davis can catch. Whereas, last year he was quote unquote competing for running back targets with Jordan Howard, who literally can't catch. So that was always going to be a really big hit. The Trubisky has been an absolute disaster, and he's finally going to get, although he has faced 2 really difficult matchups. I mean, Green Bay is looking like a stud defense, and playing at Denver against Vic Fangio was never going to be a good spot for him. He does get to face Washington in 3, so hopefully he can perform a little bit better. Josh Norman has just looked like toast, and Allen Robinson is still playing well. But yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot to like right now in Chicago outside of Allen Robinson and Dave Montgomery.
Yeah, Josh Norman is just done, and Quentin Dunbar, I was reading today, might not be able to play this week or anytime in the foreseeable future either for the Redskins secondary. I mean, this secondary is one that I want to attack. Unfortunately, I would actually want to play Trubisky, Allen Robinson stacks, but it is not on the main slate this week. Dallas had a bad injury on a guy that we both really like. Michael Gallup went down. Looks like he's going to miss 2 to 4 weeks with some type of knee scope, I believe. However, that does bring into play Devin Smith. And this is one of the waiver guys that I want to talk about because I was impressed with Devin Smith in the preseason, man. I played him a bunch. Former second round pick of the Jets. Had some really bad injury luck, but he looks like he has all his speed back. And Devin Smith was a flat baller in preseason. Now he gets to play with Dak, and I could see him playing every snap opposite Amari Cooper. And I don't think, people are like, oh, what about Randall Cobb? Well, I don't think Randall Cobb's role really changes. The one who's getting the role change here is Devin Smith. So, what do you think about Devin Smith as a waiver ad, Evan?
Yeah, exactly. So Randall Cobb has been like 89% slot. And Michael Gallup, through 2 games, only had 1 catch for 8 yards in the slot. This is not really necessarily a situation where Randall Cobb is going to get elevated. I think it's just going to be a situation where Devin Smith jumps in 1 for 1 into the Michael Gallup role. I think that Amari Cooper, because he plays outside, could benefit. Michael Gallup was leading the team in air yards and targets through 2 games. Amari's been great, but I think that Amari has a chance to be even greater. Devin Smith is going to be really, really interesting in week 3 because we're going to have Xavier Howard on Amari Cooper, and Devin Smith is going to have chances against like Jamal Wiltz and Eric Rowe, who have been just getting absolute destroyed by opposing wide receivers. And we'll talk about this kind of stuff much, much more on Friday. But Devin Smith is a priority waiver ad, especially if you need someone to play right away in week 3. I mean, I think he's a wide receiver 3 starter immediately, and we will be talking about him as a DFS play as the week progresses.
Love it. Big week for team preseason this week, Evan. I'm actually nervous, yes. but it's a big week for team preseason. We're going to talk about a bunch more of these guys. Detroit, I didn't have a lot on Detroit. I think Carry-On's usage just, we can bitch all we want, but it is what it is. He's going to play around 50 to 60% of the snaps and handle about 50 to 60% of the running back touches unless there's an injury. It just is what it is. I know people were disappointed with TJ Hawkinson. We talked about how week 1 was going to be the best spot that Detroit would find all year, facing Arizona, going to overtime, et cetera, et cetera. I thought TJ Hawkinson would be better in the box score than he ended up being, but I did expect a regression, and he still is running a route on 73% of Matthew Stafford's dropbacks this season, right in line with Mark Andrews, 74%, and slightly behind Darren Waller, 86%. Did you have anything on Detroit you wanted to talk about, Evan?
Not really. I would say that, Kenny Golladay really, really balled out in week 2. Big touchdown right in Casey Hayward's grill. That's impressive. He's clearly the alpha over Marvin Jones. And Marvin Jones, as we discussed last week, he's kind of approaching the point of like being droppable in season long. The big thing was, we talked about it like that week 1 game was so inflated by overtime and playing against the Cardinals. And then, you lose like 20 snaps and Hawkinson busts. And Amendola, I don't even think he had a catch in the game. And so that's just, that's why Pat Thorman's article can be so valuable. That's why adding context to things like this and understanding that, when don't just look at last week's box score, you need some context added to that box score. And that's how we kind of knew to avoid Amendola and, just didn't have as much confidence in Hawkinson because that game was so inflated from a number of plays standpoint and a box score standpoint.
Yeah. Let's go to Green Bay. Aaron Jones looked like he separated a little bit more from Jamal Williams, but only outsnapped him 42 to 32. The carries were where the big disparity was. Aaron Jones, 23 carries, Jamal Williams, 9, but Jamal Williams did run more routes. I'm optimistic that in better matchups, and Aaron Jones has a very tough schedule to start, in better matchups, we'll see some pop games from Aaron Jones still, but I just hate to see Jamal Williams out there catching so many balls and running so many routes, Evan.
Yeah, the final numbers look good for Aaron Jones still. It was kind of tilting to see him get vultured early in the game. Jamal Williams played on the first drive.